Okay, begins at 5:50. I'd like to call the February Park and Rec Committee meeting to order. I'd look for a motion to adopt the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda, Ginger?
No.
Approve the agenda as written.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public input. See no public input. Ginger, do you want to take the second?
We'll just
Introducing?
hand it over to the guys at Ayers and they can go ahead.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Good evening, Craig Shue from Ayers, Matthew Litchfield from Ayers as well. So we're gonna tag team on the A, B, C, and D aspects of number 3. So why we're here today, quick introductions on what we're doing. So we are assisting the city with the Cdbg closed grant for the Newton Blackmore Trail construction project. The purpose of this meeting is to really make sure that if the public wanted to have any input during this process, Cdbg gives the citizens 2 times to respond or make their concerns or their recommendations for the project known. And this is the second public hearing that is scheduled. We had one a couple of years ago as part of the process as well. Next one on here is the update of the project.
Pull up the slides. So this is the overall trail alignment. We'd be starting down Pfeiffer Park, crossing over Embarrass River to River Road, up to 54, down along 45, and then out to House Road along the railroad there. Next slide. And with that, the project update, we did a demolition plan on the east side. That should be wrapping up about this week, next week. And from there, we're going to continue with design for the rest of the trail. Once we get design completed, we'll be submitting our permits with DNR, DOT, other permits as needed, and then we'll be looking to get plans out for bidding and proceed with construction. Are there any questions with project update?
So that was a really quick overview. We don't want to take a lot of your time. Nothing else has really changed at this point. We've been updating Chad on a lot of the design things we've been working through, along with the railroad and DOT.
No big issues that have come up so far?
The railroad's been an interesting discussion. If you've updated them at all.
And you guys have seen some updates because we started a conversation with Canadian National. There's a lot of documents, including, the quick claim deed back in the day. There's industry track agreements. There's a bunch of other easements, things going on. We're working with Canadian. We hired, as you guys know, we hired John Barda to help us navigate through all that legal mumbo jumbo. Started working with Canadian National. Communication was slow with Canadian National. I think they knew that this rail sale was going through, so for them to spend a lot of time with us was not in their best interest, because Wadco was taking over the rail aspect of it through that sale. That, I don't know if it's officially, it's pretty much now.
Yeah, I think it has to go through the commissioner of railroads.
Yeah,
Yes, but
it should be pretty quick that it's actually finalizing.
Yeah, correct. They're,
Maybe weeks from now, somewhere pretty quick.
yeah, I haven't heard the official notice.
And we've been working with Wadco, and what I can say is, it seems that we've had a lot more communication in the short time we've been with Wadco than long time we've had with CN, which is positive, so. So we're getting there. But like these guys said, the rail agreements need to be cleaned up to make sure everybody's on the same page with things. Permitting, you guys want to talk about the permitting we got to go through the process?
So because we are going up into the right-of-way for the Department of Transportation along the corridor and running along the US Highway 45 stretch there, there has to be a memorandum of agreement / memorandum of understanding for maintenance and what's going to transpire along with going underneath those two structures, the one for 45 and one for the off-ramp there. So that, I believe we have a draft. We have not gone any farther with that, but the DOT has started that process with us. So that's really good to see. We're working with individuals from the DOT from Wisconsin Rapids and from Rhinelander. This structure over Highway 54 and over the railroad are in the jurisdiction of North Central Region, even though you're in Outagamie County in this location, and it would be typically the Green Bay DOT office. So it's just nothing bad. It's just we're working with individuals a little farther away. But we're doing Zoom meetings with them, and everything's working well there. The most difficult aspect of this project is the floodplain. So everything down by the park on the very west end, that is all floodplain. 100-year flood covers a lot of that area, and that is what we are trying to work through right now. And I'm not going to bore you with details, but it is something that we are struggling with a little bit, and trying to see what we can do to make sure that we get a zero rise for that 100-year flood upstream of the proposed structure going into the park.
Because there would have to be, obviously, a bridge over the Embarrassed River to get us into Piper Park there, that location.
It would be really nice to just put a zip line there, because it would make life so much easier.
Kind of hard with a bike, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or a horse, I mean, because horses can get to that point.
Yeah, but you're not gonna let horses into the park.
Just the right there, I think, would be the start, if people want to drop off, but not farther west into the park.
So, any questions with regards to that?
Has there been any bidding on what it would cost to build a bridge over the river?
So we've done cost estimates right now, and we have done other structures with our structures group throughout the state of Wisconsin. So we do have current prices. We did structures at UWGB. They were bid in November, I believe, that are very similar to this in nature, pedestrian only, so they're not quite as beefy, but we did get cost estimating. Lunda Construction is building those right now as we speak. So we do have, cost estimating, and contractors and suppliers are pretty willing to give us rough costs right now. Obviously, as you all know, prices are fluctuating by the day. Gas prices are rising, so we're trying to estimate, have a little factor of safety in there as we put our estimates together. We're never going to know until we bid it what the final cost will be. If that makes sense.
And like they talked about initially, the demo, some may have seen that construction going on. We had, per the grant, we had to start some construction in 2021. So the easiest point of that, at this point, safely to say, we needed to remove that existing rail that was in this section on the east side of it anyway. So that was part of the, and we went through that bidding process, and you guys approved that at council. But like we talked about, we left enough in here for, and there isn't any exact plans, but if there was any need for us to put another spur on this parcel, that could be accommodated to make this a rail accessible, developable parcel in the future. Like I said, no plans for it right now. We're not looking at purchasing that. It just leaves that option that if there is a desire or an opportunity to make this more rail accessible, industrial land, it is an option.
So we can go back to the agenda if you'd like. Okay, so we've discussed letter B, letter C on the agenda there, discuss housing needs identified in the community. So as part of the application, we had to view and evaluate low to moderate income within the community. Outagamie County assisted with this process, and they identified the northwest portion of the city as primarily low to moderate income in some of those places. There was an exhibit that was placed in the application from 2019. So really, as part of the CDBG grant process, we just have to update you that these demographics haven't changed substantially in the last 2.5 years, and that if there is any questions with regards to housing, that anybody in the public right now attending this meeting has the opportunity to speak. So at this point in time, I will open it up to any questions that you have with regards to that. It's just standard operating procedure for CDBG policy.
Nobody's being displaced in this project, so that's,
Correct.
you know, one of the big things.
Yep. If there's an acquisition of properties or something, it gets to be a little more concerning, but this is an enhancement to all users where it can enhance the usability of the park, the trail to the east of the city, the Newton Blackmore that's on the county responsibilities. So it is a benefit to all, but they really want to identify any benefits to the low to moderate income as part of the CDBG process.
Has there been any, back to the railroad, back to the trail again, I have a question. Has there been any discussion about the railroad tracks going from the London west? I know it's abandoned in Manawa, they tore the tracks out in Manawa. I'm just wondering if there's been any discussion on that.
So we have not had any discussions on that. So Canadian National has a switch within the city that they still run a line that goes to the south towards, I believe it comes right into Grand Chute area. Right now, that sees a few trains a day, I believe, is all, or maybe it's a few a week now. But Watco is hoping to, because of their purchase of that spur going into the hardwoods flooring company, they're hoping to enhance some of that potential and have some cars go in there periodically. I don't think they've worked out an agreement yet with, because they do not have ownership technically of that line yet, meaning Watco. But there has been, they've had discussions, they've had meetings. Chad has actually met with the owners from the business there as well.
So, to your point, going here west, obviously this project does not entail any discussions going west. I have not heard anything from Outagamie County, or sorry, from Waupaca County that Watco makes plans. There has been no discussion or information brought out that Watco has stated anything about their desire to either develop the rail to the west or disband it or whatever. There hasn't been any discussion about that, so I have no clue.
So we're only as far as where's the Piper Park.
This project has only, encompassed the land of Piper Park. Anything to the west, out of the city limits, has not been discussed.
Really, the goal of this was to get users of the trail to the east of the city into the city, to see the amenities that the city has to offer them as part of this.
Now, if Watco decides that they are never going to, start up rail surface to Manawa, then obviously those discussions will start, but that'll be Waupaca County development for the most part. We would have to accommodate within the city a little bit to figure that out, but from the city limits out to wherever, that'd be a Waupaca County project discussion thing.
Didn't mean to get you off point.
No, hey, those are all great questions. Not a problem at all. And then item D on here is citizens' input and questions regarding CDBG project activities. So you hit on it, you're just curious about other aspects of this project. CDBG is set up for typically low to moderate income and public facilities projects that enhance or beautify. It reduces the burden on those incomes, families and homes and businesses. So that's really the purpose of this. This was a revolving loan program that the Outagamie County had, and that was closed per state statutes and laws by the regulatory agency and your governing body of Wisconsin. So it's just, we're using those funds for the betterment of the public, and we hope that this project is a great success as we move forward for the community. So, yeah, we'll open it up to any questions that anybody has, otherwise, hopefully we've answered most of them for you.
Is there a time frame you guys are kind of looking for actually completing this project?
So, the completion, the anticipated completion date is September, end of September?
End of
September
September.
1st-ish for construction. So, if you noticed how fast Radke was in, even with the cold weather we've had the last few weeks, once a contractor mobilizes in, you know, they can keep moving pretty good. They don't have to deal with a lot of traffic control or anything of that nature once they get beyond where they're at right now. So,
So you're saying you're gonna start breaking ground for the new trail to bring it into the city?
So,
in
sometime
year?
this summer, we have not set a final date. We have to get our agreements in place with the railroad and with the DOT prior to us really bidding the project out. And then getting the DNR permit as well. But the DNR permit will come concurrent with DOT's processes. So, but the biggest holdup thus far has really been the railroad. Waiting for that transition, and we're waiting patiently because, you know, the attorney that the city has hired has helped the process along, but we just need it to be finalized as the sale, and then Waco can really dive into it with us.
And I know you haven't released any numbers or anything, but do you feel comfortable that we're still in budget? I mean, I know there was $800,000 in grants, but I was just wondering, are we still gonna fall into that budget?
So
We've been having those discussions.
Yep.
Every time I talk to these guys, they're talking about, you know, they talk about the wetlands around the bridge project. The cost of things are going up dramatically. The cost is going up, so, you know, we're gonna have to decide on, you know, we have funding, we have the grant funding, and if we're short, then we're gonna have to be talking to other groups to see what we can do to bring in other funding. Or if it comes down to it, maybe we do the project, we can't do the bridge yet until we get funding for that aspect. So I'd like to see the entire thing done, but, you know, if just because of the market and the conditions and the inflation and everything the way it is, we gotta wait until the bid process happens. And, you know, the bid process, there's a lot of timelines that are dictated by the grant too. So that's why we gotta hit some of these thresholds or these grant timelines by the end of summer.
So there was an estimate put together in 2020. That was with some lighting that we thought we might have to have out on site. We were over $985,000. Now, nobody expected prices to go, you know, typically you see inflation through the years, and I've been doing this 23 years now in the construction industry with Ayers. You saw 3, 4, maybe 5% tops as an inflation. I am now having contractors, and we're bidding 2 jobs in the next 3 days here for sewer and water and roadway projects. These pipe prices and material prices have gone through the roof. It's unreal. And all of you are aware of it. If anybody wants to buy a car, or if they want to buy, you know, you want to build a house, the prices are ridiculous right now in certain industries. We could not have predicted that. That's not possible. We're still hoping that our design is very cost effective and efficient. What Radke bid for the demolition, you know, they were the low bidder. We had another bidder that was a little bit higher than them, but our bids were relatively close together, which meant we had a good project and a good plan set. And we're hoping the same thing occurs. And like Chad had said, you know, we're going to use all the grant money up, and then we'll see where it goes if it does come in over budget. But that's a discussion we'll have to have when we bid the project out.
And there's some other groups we've been talking to, and I can't guarantee that other groups will come forward to help financially, but we've been having some discussions with some other groups, so hopefully there's opportunities.
I was just gonna say that, there's been, the good thing about this being such a large project is that the community's talking about it and they're interested in it and excited about it. And the special interest groups have been coming to me and saying, we want this, we want to be involved. So hopefully that will be an opportunity too.
Internally, we've also been looking at the possibility of if this because this is gonna be used for snowmobiles as well, if there's any grant out there right now that the Department of Natural Resources is gonna have out there, Chad and myself have not had any discussions with regards to where the ARPA funds are. About a month ago, they allowed some modifications to the original legislature that was passed, the bill that the president passed with regards to ARPA funds. They are now able to be used more than just for infrastructure, for any public improvement project. My guess is those have been earmarked already within the city, but I just, you know, there, and then you still potentially have another infrastructure bill if he ever gets his Build Back Better passed within the state and house.
John?
I was just gonna say, looking at the trail, you know, that the part that is developed, maybe I'm wrong, call me crazy, but I would think that 90% of what we're trying to accomplish here, the materials are gonna come from a quarry less than 2 miles from the city of New London. I don't see, you know, I can see gas and fuel, but
Talk about some of the other materials that we need for this project.
Oh, so, yeah, we're gonna have some retaining walls underneath the, both of the bridges, that we go underneath. The off-ramp, for northbound, 45 and for Highway 45, north-south. We'll need to do some, hold back the slope paving that's there. We're looking at some barrier fence, potentially a chain link fence, between the trail that is running parallel, right where Chad is mentioning. He's really good with his cursor tonight. Where he's showing, where we're running parallel to the live spur going into the business, there has to be a separation barrier there, so that, and that's part of industry agreements with the railroads. So that's something that, you know, we're anticipating, and we have to work through with that. And then obviously you have the bridge, that would come from a contractor or, you know, a supplier. Potentially Wheeler is a company that's out of Minnesota. They would, you know, they typically do a lot of our structures of this size and this caliber. It's going to be loaded so that they can go across it with a small, you know, an ATV or something of that nature, a UTV, and snowmobiles. A groomer will not go across this structure, but, you know, we're setting it up so that it can handle snowmobile traffic and everything to get to the rest of the city. That's a few of those items.
So it's not just
yeah, it's
screenings.
not just rock.
Yeah.
There's concrete, there's fencing, there's a bunch of other stuff too.
What's the width of that bridge?
Pardon me?
What's the width of that bridge?
Right now, we got 12 feet wide, and then the railings will extend it out another feet on each side.
Today is the first time I've ever heard conversation about the bridge. All the money I was under the impression was just to get it to that point. So I'm really intrigued about this bridge. In that estimate in 2020 of that 938,000, was that the bridge included in that estimate?
So, no, it's not in here, in this one. I know in our updates, it has been.
It has been.
So originally, when we were scoping this project, Wapaka County's Forestry and Parks Department
Park Department.
was going to lead the effort for that structure. They were going to engage somebody, we were going to meet that structure with our trail. That changed after this application was completed, and we've been working through that process right now, and it was added to our scope in the final design efforts. We do have structural engineers in our Eau Claire office, also in Madison as well. We do about 40 bridges a year in the state of Wisconsin through the design efforts. This is just another bridge, pedestrian or roadway, that we work through. But yeah, no, it was not originally when we started this in
But
19
that's just the grant application.
Correct, this is just the grant application.
You have given that in your alternate
Yes.
opinions. Trying to see if I can find it right now.
And we have updated CDBG that we're hoping to use if there's excess funds available for that as well.
So, and this is November 3rd, 2017, you had the Bridge River crossing at 225,000. And at that time, the total project cost, granted way different from 2017, total project cost was 920,309 at that time. So,
I believe we also had that in our capital project list. So it's definitely
because
close to that cost.
the grant was 860 some thousand from the block grant. We included another $200,000 in the bonding
Yeah.
to get us over $1 million in the budget.
That's all.
That's not saying that was in the bridge, but that was just part of the entire plan. So we had over $1 million budget for this, but like I said, the cost was way different than the original budget. Let's see what the bids come out of.
Any other questions?
And just to throw it out there, what you're seeing right now for this public hearing, for this community development block at the trail, we're gonna do the same thing, we have to do the same thing at the Board of Public Works, for the community development block grant projects for the streets in the Fifth Ward. So we're gonna do this exact same thing at the Board of Public Works, so not that you come back next month, you just did this public hearing, that's for a different project. So we have to do the same thing.
They're piggybacking off of us, which is good. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you. So I guess this is officially closing that citizen participation hearing tonight. I guess just housekeeping. There was that separate attendance form going around. Just have to get 2 more signatures here before. It's just something that Cdbg they require us to submit. We have to do meeting minutes and an attendance form as part of the documentation for this.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you guys are all done?
We're good. Yep, I'll just wait for this and we might stick around for the rest of your meeting.
All right, this is making my meeting easier. My next guest is the school district gentleman, so they can go ahead and take, you can go up, yep, just like they did.
Fantastic.
Welcome Scott Black and Joe Marquardt from the school district to talk about a proposal of the tennis courts.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to the Park and Recs Committee. Joe and I were excited to share some information, potential new concepts, ideas, but I think also for many of you that have been part of the Park and Rec Committee and Council as a whole, a conversation that has come up in the past, and that is on tennis courts and utilization, usage, maybe the partnership between the school district and our community, and resources that are available. So I have like 5 or 6 slides just to kind of reference where we are and give some perspective, and when I'm done I'll give Chad the handout as well, and then you guys can have them at the end of tonight and reference back. So forward we go. All right, so just a little current status update of how the district utilizes the tennis courts. And to preface it, we're very thankful, all right, with that partnership that we've been able to utilize not only tennis courts but other fields and open spaces as well. That gratis that goes back and forth between the city and the school district. We currently have a varsity and junior varsity tennis program that's been in existence for 20 plus years and has found great success through the years. One of our tennis players, and is part of, that's not planned, is part of your council. She wore a sweatshirt. It's like, oh my gosh, things happen for a reason there sometimes. But Rachel is definitely part of our tennis program. And our primary location of practice and what our high school uses right now are the Hatton courts, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with. I touched base with Chad earlier in the week, and I overheard when we met last fall that Ginger, you were taking the group on a site tour of Hatton Park. And I said, Chad, how detailed did you get to the park and the tennis courts? And obviously there was conversation of where they are and some little historical perspective. So we currently use those 4 courts as our primary practice place right now. And on to the next slide. And but there are some limiting factors that play into how we currently use it. So we have on average about 20 students per year that participate in our session. And I know the district as a whole has been appreciative to partner with the city to maintain the current courts around the city, primarily at Hatton, to upkeep with that maintenance effort for the surfacing, resurfacing, the cleaning, and the striping that needs to go on. With that, ultimately looking at those current physical conditions that now limit us in our ability to have competition. Talking to our activities director this past year, we hosted one competition as a district this year, and it was up at Pfeiffer Park, and we had, it was a singles match of our number 1 against the gal from Green Bay, East or West, I believe, and it was just for one match. So historically, over the past several years, we've not been able to hold home events. So as a community, we'd like to be able to say that we do have spaces where we can bring guests into our community to support our student athletes and families. But realistically, right now, that's not part of our school. On to the next. So our study of opportunity as a school district, this as well is something that we've been working on for a while to see what might be a potential solution to carry forward. So a little over a year ago, our board authorized Mr. Marquardt and I to take the next step and look at some potential options of what could potentially be done to support the creation of tennis courts at our high school campus, okay, and which would drastically change the usage, utilization, the ability to bring in practices, competitive competitions, so on and so forth. So our board facilities committee vetted out this process, and ultimately we presented a preliminary analysis of what 6 to 8 courts may look like over at our high school campus. And if you're familiar with the high school campus, with makes its way around the south end of the campus there. That green space just on the south side of the school was the targeted area. But that ultimately would give us then that seamless opportunity for students to practice, be at the school. Ultimately, that transportation piece, students that are going back and forth to practice would be eliminated, creating safer environments as well for our students and our coaching staff and our families when we're in that generalized area. The training, competitive match place, and then ultimately our ability to host an event, which is very important in any aspect of co-curriculars or as a district as a whole when we want to showcase who we are. Okay. A few more other study of opportunities. The opportunity for that potential continued partnership with the city as well is something that Joe and I shared with Ginger and Chad back in September. And knowing that the council itself was probably in the final stages of your budget development for the fiscal year, but we wanted to get out in front of it, at least to have a conversation with the open intent to share some conversation opportunities with the Park and Rec Committee or the appropriate level to have a conversation. So looking for that continued partnership to support recreational tennis within our community. All right, ultimately, maybe advantageous not just for the school district, but for the city as well. The use of tennis courts are often now multi-purpose for other recreational activities, pickleball, ball sports that take place within the confines or the layout of a traditional tennis court. And if something were to move forward or gain ground, we see this as a potential option to partner with the city to create more spaces. And just in looking at the existing courts and some very, low-level conversations of existing courts within the city, interests and recreational needs are continually changing. You all probably hear that from our community members, and so it might just give additional opportunity to repurpose some existing spaces to change the purpose of what that current court may look like. and ultimately improve courts within our community for individuals to use, but then create new spaces for our citizens to be able to carry out what those interests are as well. So what's next as a whole? Okay, you know, we're here today, starting at the very much the lowest level of conversation, and just sharing a conceptual idea. If the city, Park and Recs, or the appropriate group sees value added to continuing this conversation of what potentially could be next, we would love to have that conversation, knowing that we would be, you know, working in essence to develop a space that would replicate current services that exist within our community, but look different in the end as to where the location is. And knowing that location in a city and amenities is very important, that, you know, courts at Pfeiffer Park, courts in Hatton, courts at Abraham create that flexibility. Now, how that works with a concept like that, does that still meet the targets and objectives of this group to meet the needs of the community? Ultimately, those are all things that would play into it. And I'll have to say as well, you know, the monetary piece, a project like this obviously comes with costing to come forward. And the district understands that, you know, we are most relevant, the builder and the supporter of the program initiative, but looking at past history and how we work collaboratively together, there could be an opportunity to merge some resources together to develop a space for our community. Okay, next one. And simply, that's the story in a nutshell as to what we're conceptually thinking. I know in your materials there was an overview picture that was shared in your materials, as well as we can look at that first there. Thanks, Chad. So as you can see, as W comes around the south side of the district, you can see the green space there, and the rendering shows an 8-court schematics of what that would look like, and I referenced between 6 and 8 courts depending, you know, on costing and availability and funding. And Rettler organization, they were Joe, correct me if I'm not wrong, they were the design team for the high school when it was built?
Correct.
All right, so they were part of that schematics of when the high school was originally built. There were tennis courts in that generalized area 20 years ago when they laid out of what New London High School could look like in the future. So in that essence there, that planning some grading, obviously it's not in true as to what it would need to be, but the space parameters truly do fit within that area. Okay, we'll go to the next one. So the costing, as we look forward to what a project of this magnitude or size and scale costs, you know, it is definitely an investment into the future, okay, to support programming, not only curricular-wise within our educational system at the high school, seeing the cost benefit of having additional spaces for students to learn and practice and play in the school setting, but as well as a resource for our community teaming together with the city if deemed appropriate. Mr. Marker, why don't you take us through some of those financials and what has been coming forward since your perspective?
Sure, thank you. Tennis court discussions are not a surprise to me. Chad and I have been talking about tennis courts, I think, since 2012 when we last partnered on the resurfacing of the courts at Pfeiffer. And one of the things that he shared at that time in his role was this might be one of the last times we're able to do that. And then a few years later, I know he shared a summary from, was it Fred Volkman?
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, where the city went through a study of what it would cost to upgrade the courts throughout the city that they had. So discussions took place then, I think that was in 2018, and then now coming forward with the numbers that you see up there of 8 courts of $726,000. When we looked at in 2018, just at Pfeiffer and what it would cost to upgrade there, I know depending on if it was a competitive surface or if it was a surface that was different than what competition tennis teams prefer, that was going to be around $200,000 as well. So when I look at those courts to this courts and new spaces, the numbers don't surprise me. The cost definitely would surprise anyone because it's a lot of money when you look at, putting 8 courts there. From a perspective of how did we get this number, as Mr. Bleck said, we started with an RFP to give us a proposal from companies who design courts, and Rettler was one that made a presentation to us, and they had the lowest cost of what it would do to start putting the proposals together for us. So that's why Rettler is a part of that. And I think, as Mr. Bleck said, the reason why they were the lowest is because they had a hand in designing the high school as it was. So they already had a lot of information at their disposal from site planning back in the late 90s.
Okay. Chad, could you bring up the, that overview document?
Slope of the wall.
I think they're both the same.
Either one is.
Either one I think
very
will show.
similar. This was just a visual that Rettler put together that helps people see more of what it might look like.
You know, as we look at, you know, the 8 courts and that proximity to where that existing parking lot is on the south side of the high school, you know, if it would be something that would garner some strength or interest to move forward as far as accessibility to the public, the access to and from, easy access and parking is right there. You know, the accessibility, you know, the rendering itself does show some of the amenities when you get into the costing as add-ons or additional, and the lighting is one of them. Lighting is always preferred, you know, especially in a competition season and for community members if they are using a space after their traditional workday. But those are things that add to the called the pleasantries of the environment with the screen walls, the retaining walls. A couple items that aren't necessarily noted, you know, the amenities of some simple storage, you know, and seating to support an event. Again, proximity to where we are in relationship to the high school. All those amenities are within a door, you know, in the building, which does make sense in that regard of being able to meet the ADA compliances and elements that are out there. I think it's critically important when we look at something of this, you know, to, you know, ensure an open space, you know, under well lit, well visible, but as well safe. And then it's pleasing to the eye, all right? It's proud of who we are as a school community and as a community as a whole. So they can say, wow, look at that. You know, that is a great place to recreate as well as to educate, teach, and learn within our district. So are there any thoughts or questions, you know, at this level? I guess my intent was to share it at the lowest level, taking our direction from our facilities committee, you know, to bring some ideas and concept forward with the council and Park and Rec to see if there is an opportunity to move forward or what that might look like in the near future for potential planning. Any questions for Joe or I?
I have a question. Right up front, do you guys benefit, as far as the project, benefit from a grant if the city partners with the school district?
There could be grant opportunities from tennis organizations that facilitate some of that fundraising, if you will. I know Rettler brought around a couple concepts for some of the additional add-ons that may not be part of an original project, but they have, I guess, lanes that groups work towards to bring forward that lighting, to bring forward some of those additional amenities. So I think there are grant opportunities from tennis organizations that see this as value added. Absolutely.
I didn't know if partnering with the city opened the door for any other grants that were potentially possible.
We
if you knew that or
talked
not.
with Coach Sarah Floor about that first before we came here. We know that we would try to apply for grants as a standalone. Oftentimes what I have found is when intergovernmental agencies collaborate together, that can definitely benefit a grant. So if that would happen, I'm sure we would include that as part of our analysis of could a grant help pay for any portion of that, which would then potentially create different support levels as well. Most of the time, if you can share that, it's a collaborative effort, just like we kind of heard with your grant project there, it can help, you know, with public support of a project like that.
Thank you.
What is the ask of the city?
I think right now,
Otherwise, what do we?
sure, right now would be just I think one of the very last slides, just to continue the conversation with the stakeholder group that would say, yes, this is something we want to look a little deeper into, all right? And then what would be an appropriate support level, you know, from looking at how the district has supported with some resurfacing, the maintenance and effort on the current courts. You know, if that's the mode, would like to continue on with that mindset, or if it's a different mindset, to take it something better than or less than. You know, our door is very much open, you know, within the scope. Brett?
Scott, I know both you guys, and I like both you guys, but I hate to poke your blue, and this is no way in heck could we do anything like this.
Sure.
Anything sort of even close. We already got the commitment to the library. I think your best avenue would be to try to do a fundraiser like the library board did. Because we've got, other capital projects we need to take care of. We got the downtown street stuff coming in '24. I just can't see how we could squeeze some money out of it.
Sure.
And plus, we've got two distinctly separate governmental taxing entities, a school district and a city. And what will the people think if we're mingling the two together? That's another tax we need to be concerned with. So at this stage, I don't see any options we got. I mean, the old tennis courts, be a perfect location if high school was still there. But it's not, that's the way it is.
Well, I appreciate the feedback, Fred, because that's, you know, the voice of the committee and the council, I mean, ultimately drives the direction for future decision making. So that's very good. No offense taken, all right? We just felt where we were, where we have been, and where we'd like to go, and, you know, the opportunities that are out there.
Fred, I like what you said too. You brought to light about the tax differences as far as the city of New London paying tax towards that. Almost on a double tax, correct? Is that what you're going at?
I was just gonna say, we're gonna have to do something with our tennis courts that we have now. There should be some kind of money set aside to maintain the ones we have. We don't know what that kind of partnership looks like right now. I don't see what it would hurt to look into it. If it's a facility that is gonna benefit the community, not just the school district, we could maybe get rid of the tennis courts in Manhattan altogether and compile resources for a better tennis court.
And that was the point I was just gonna make. Ginger and I have been talking about that. You know, if this facility was constructed, there's no reason that New London needs 16 courts in the city for usage. So if this facility would be created, you know, Park and Rec Committee and Ginger kind of lead the charge, what are we gonna do with our existing courts? You know, would we just remove Taft Park and do some other programming things there? Would we, and I'm not saying this is what we do, but I'm just throwing out ideas. You know, would you convert Pfeiffer Park into the basketball courts? Could we, you know, we took away the Pfeiffer Park basketball courts. So would you convert the Abraham courts to pickleball? Because that's up and coming. So I mean, that would be something that we decide
Regardless
too.
of what we do, we're gonna have to look at those costs, and factor those into the conversation, because you're right, we can't just let them sit.
Ultimately, I think that maybe pooling resources might save us money in the long term. It doesn't hurt to look into it.
And understanding that, you know, this is an initial conversation, so some of those items that become real and relevant, you know, when numbers are known, you know, that I think that's when, you know, the hard look at what can we do, you know, what makes sense, you know, what's our vision as a Park and Recs committee, what's the vision as a school district to meet our community needs. You know, we're all public servants, you know, we think on that hat when we bring forward, you know, ideas, thinking about today, but more importantly, the forward looking, you know, as to what could come forward. You stole the thunder when you talked about the inflated cost of construction. A project like this is no difference, you know. Mark referenced earlier this afternoon, 4% that we're seeing annually. that what you brought forward?
You know, when we first had a study done, it was less than, what it showed up there. We were looking more between 600 and 650,000. And that 4% inflation increase over the last 2 summers and then another summer, that's something very real that they shared with us. And you know, as we shared, it's likely not going to go down in cost either.
And then also, I just wanted to say, it really makes our city more attractive. I mean, it's right out front. You're gonna drive by, you're like, wow, look at that. You know, we talk about economic development in this community, bringing more workforce to the community, this, that, and the other. A strong school system is definitely attracting more people to the community, and maybe there's some people that, you know, would like to come to New London, but want to be tennis, you know, players, and there's, you know, I don't know.
John, go ahead.
I definitely agree, you know, and it's not certainly wouldn't be the first time that the city of New London and the school district partnered on projects. But if you look at what I don't have my capital project notes with me, but tennis courts are always on that radar. And Ginger could probably tell us a little closer, but as a person who's been sitting in this meeting room for the last 22 years, tennis courts are a constant thing on that radar, and the school district has constantly ponied up for use of those tennis courts. And so to say that they've never partnered in the past, you know, I don't think Mr. Zogg's speaking on as a unified voice for all of us.
That's not what I said, John.
But
Right.
there's certainly nothing wrong with public entities coming together to say, how can we best utilize our resources going forward? And how can we make sure that there's at least a place to conduct this outdoor activity in our city? And let's face it, if we get some estimates of what it's gonna cost the city to even maintain one tennis court that we have, and let's look at those numbers honestly this summer or spring, or as we move forward, and say, is it worth it? And maybe we know we'd have to invest that much to get one playable court. Maybe that's where we approach the school district and say, look, here's what we can contribute. And then, you know, in terms of ongoing future maintenance, when the line's gotta be redone 10 years from now, whatever. But, I'm saying, don't kick an idea down the road before we've even had a chance to. Like Scott said, this is just a very low-level, entry-level discussion about this, but I think it's definitely worthwhile for our community.
I'd like to bring back also what Mr. Roberts was saying about the attractiveness and kind of look around at our community in tennis as it is. Our tennis program at the school district has started out minimal, and I've seen it in the last 5 years triple in athletes, and then how that has spawned into our community, and further other people come to our community because we had the courts and stuff. This isn't something that just happened overnight. It's continually to grow, and then you look at our surrounding communities, all the as far as ways to go on Wrightstown and stuff. The tennis court is getting huge, and not only in the school districts, but in the communities. I agree with you. It's into it. I mean, there's a lot of hurdles, but I think we should.
Not pushing anybody into direction, but I think just factual information. You know, Tim was talking about, well, we have to spend money. We've had comments from people to fix what we have. So, you know, the city's gonna have to spend money. Again, I'm not saying what the partnership, if and what would be. Factually, in 2018, like Joe said, we had Fred Wolgert, what was his last name? Coleman. Fred Coleman come in. He's a professional, does, you know, tennis court, evaluation, stuff like that. In 2018, Berhattan determined that just putting on another coat over the top, you're wasting your money because they are so far degraded. Usually that coat's gonna last I don't know, 10 years or something. That coat would only last a couple of years just because the courts themselves are so deteriorated. At that time, he recommended a couple of different options for those courts at Taft. Number one, a tile system. And that was just to kind of fill in the cracks that are there and throw a tile court over the top. So in 2018, that cost was $187,000. Obviously, that cost is up since then. Then the post-tension diagonal slope. These two options are concrete, I believe it was. So you can see if he would just remove what was there and not really deal with correcting and putting down a perfect slope to the area, the cost was going to be $512,000. If we would correct the slope properly, perfectly, the cost at that time was going to be $581,000. And then if we would just do a product of asphalt again, you can kind of see the cost was going to be $287,000 for the existing slope, or if we correct it, $357,000. He also gave us some ideas what it would be for maintenance and cost, what it would be over a, you know, a 20-year period, whatever it would be, and you kind of see those here. But I guess to like what Tim was talking about, if we do something with our current courts, there's going to be some big bucks to spend. Do we do that with our current courts? Do you partner up with the school district? All to be determined. But I think just to see this factual data, what we talked about for Hatton at the time is right there.
And then Hatton only has 4 courts, correct?
Correct. Yep. And we've got the same data for Pfeiffer and Abraham. So we had all 3 courts, all 3 locations surveyed by that professional at the time. So
Definitely need to look into it. I mean, our courts are not of the greatest status right now.
I think we owe it to our community to look into it.
I don't know, I guess if it's gonna cost us that much to fix the ones we have, I'd be better off building new.
Only question I have, and I don't know anything about that, so maybe I'm just talking dumb, but why 8 courts?
Sure.
Why?
So, you know, I referenced between 6 and 8, and in our conversation with our tennis coach, when a varsity team competes, typically there's anywhere from six matches going on, a practice court, a warm-up court. 8 would be, you know, superb, ideal.
Okay.
Can they function with 6? Probably so.
I
Yeah.
was just curious, I
Yeah,
don't know anything about
absolutely.
tennis, so.
It's based on,
As far as the conference goes, what do they see typically?
you know, it ranges, you know, from that 6 to 8. You know, like 7 was a number that Sarah brought up that they're,
Yeah,
there
Rachel.
we go.
Rachel?
Oh, the conference.
Sorry.
That was good. The conference is pretty big. Generally, we go to, I know Green Bay has courts. We go to the Pier a lot, and a lot of the Appleton schools, just because we've seen like a lot of like neglect with some other people's like tennis courts, which is unfortunate. I know FBL had to take theirs down. But I know from like talking with the girls, sometimes we try to like, and talking to Coach Floor, we try to repeat like different places so that we can get more meets.
So other schools have to go to other schools.
And it's a lot of traveling fees and such like that. Also, oh man, I forgot what I was gonna say.
Sorry.
How many courts are usually
Yeah.
6 to 8? What's more
Generally,
normal?
it's like 8, 9, because I play number 1 doubles, and we generally go to 3 is on top, and then we have 1 JV match. So it's like 4 and 4, and then they have like just a court that's kind of like been there, because it's like a warm-up court, see who plays next, or anything like that. Especially if it's a tournament.
Okay.
So more with that 8 over 6
Yeah.
at their facilities.
In girls' tennis is a fall sport, you know, as far as time of season and when that's taking place. So you're starting in the end of July, early August, and when did Peyton go to state this year? Was it early November, end of October-ish?
It was like early, it was like almost like early October-ish.
October?
Like, yeah, because our season state was around like my birthday week-ish.
Okay.
or like just before it, so yeah.
Just so when we think of the lighting and, hosting a competition, earlier on in the year, absolutely, there's sunlight and whatnot, you're able to move through, but as the fall progresses, that's where that lighting sometimes comes in question. Obviously, if you have more courts, you're able to put more at once and streamline the process through.
Right.
I think kind of the consensus of the group right now is, I guess, we gotta do some investigating on the
Absolutely.
prices
No,
and stuff.
that's,
So I'm
that was
kind of
my
thinking,
hope, and thank you for that, Bob. And our
Nothing I
facilities
can ask
committee
anybody.
appreciates
It's a curious
this potential next step to continue the
Just wanna make
conversation.
This is a
And
double-edged
hope that I can
thing.
work with
Meet
Ginger
with the
and Chad,
school, like I
what might
never
be the next step from this group's input
I got questions.
as we go forward.
Say it
So,
now, probably.
appreciate you coming here and
One or two of the committee members want to be involved, and maybe one of the two of the, your facility members. I don't know if we want to get too big, but I mean,
Sure.
at least have representation. I don't know if, between Ginger and myself and a couple other people representing the city, and then several from the school district
Absolutely.
collaborate and.
So we periodically have our facilities committee meeting, and it might make good sense to, when those people are identified, that we just have a joint meeting, and this be the topic of conversation, and we can review where we were and kind of strategize what might be realistic as a next step, so.
hey, appreciate you gentlemen coming.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Ginger, review the special events policy.
Okay, so as I came into my new role, I was finding a lot of special events permits coming in, and having conversations with Chief Schlueter and finding that there could be some updates that could help. It's not on. That could help us streamline the process of this, and possibly utilize, just help us utilize some of their funds to pay for our, we have a lot of times when the police department is using a lot of overtime, things like that. So we've taken our time and looked through the policy and made some changes. It's a good time. It hasn't been done since 2014, and also we're going through the codification process, so this will be included with that, hopefully. So I'm just gonna go through and point out the changes that we made. One thing that Nicole Lemke and I have found that we would like to see is just a checklist, a kind of a two-stage process where the application is issued, we do a review and a submittal process, and then we make sure that the group has all of their individual permits secured, so that the permit or the application isn't actually approved. As soon as we get it, it's not approved until we know that those permits are given, the insurance is clear. Something we're finding right now with the big groups is that they have the licensed bartenders and the Class B liquor license. And so that stuff, they're not gonna be ready for right away when they do submit the application. And this is giving us time as we go through, and we'll see the timeline as well. So I added that, just that there's a verification checklist that'll be included in the process. Here, we had a lot of timelines that we're gonna you'll see coming forward, so I removed that a little bit. This was just something that we updated. It was in the process already, but just clarified, so that special groups know that when they're requesting a street closure, that's gonna be North Water Street, Pearl Street, County Road X, that needs to be approved by the county, where the special event will be issued. I'm actually in conversations right now with Casey Beiersdorf to find out what their process is, because I feel like that'll help us understand. Right now, today I met with, Chief and I met with the Sturgeon Shuffle group, or the individual from the Sturgeon Shuffle, and they've already been approved for Cuyahoga County X. And during that time, some of you know, it's a walleye run. It's a white bass run, possibly. The sturgeon are rolling, so the tourism is heading straight out on X. So did the county think, well, you know, maybe we shouldn't shut that road down because people want to go out there? So kind of talking with them too about this and making sure that we're on the same page. This brings forward the fee schedule that I'm proposing. This has to do with the application submittal itself, or paperwork required. These dates were set basically by Nicole and I, and how those permits would come in and how much time she needs. Like if it's a bartender's license, if that has to go to council for approval, we need that time. And resources by the city. If it's a large event, they're going to need to have the sheriff's department have, can't think of what they're called, reserve deputies come in. So that's definitely going to be needed before 60 days before the event.
What's the present fee?
There is none.
There is none.
Right. So this is just kind of a push to get them to submit before these times. So that's why those are so high. Yeah, these are late fees. These are not fees for the actual permits.
All right.
Right.
And Ginger, you brought up the reserve deputies.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit on why that's a concern as far as
Sure.
how there's less?
Sure. And that was one of Chief's big main points that he wanted to go over, was that we are using all of the staff that we can for a major event, and that's pulling from other parts of the city. So he is suggesting, and he has always suggested, that the reserve deputies come, or the group hires reserve deputies so that the liability is on the group and it's not on the city, to have those reserve deputies if it's anything serving alcohol, if it's anything where there's going to be a band after, after dark during, I think 10 p.m. Right now, there's only, I think there's only a handful of reserve deputies even available. So they're more than likely going to have to pull and do overtime from our staff to have that event. So is that kind of what you were looking at?
That's exactly what I was looking
Okay.
for. Because now, there used to be, more reserve deputies, and now that we're down to, I think, 5. But coming back on to our staff, we're working them more, and then we're also putting that cost on our citizens for tax money to host for somebody else to raise money or have an event.
Right. And so I do go over that here. Sorry, I should have brought this up. Just that fully anticipated expense, or the down payment of the security expense from the department, is paid for by the group and not by the police department. Just because we're tight staffed as well. And that's based on 100% the chief of police decision and not anybody else's, so. And just more about that proof of compliance that we're requesting.
Can you go back up to the timeline of dates? You
Yep.
kind of skipped over it a little bit. Just review it really quickly. We're creating a little bit larger buffers, especially for newer events.
Right.
Because there's so many
Right.
things to consider, aspects to make sure hoops are jumped through, permits are
So,
gotten.
correct. What we're finding is we have 3 major events right now that are brand new. They need time to secure those permits, to give us a map and let us know where their event is gonna be held, where their parking's gonna be, porta potties, things like that they need to think of. So we wanna give them time to think about those things, and you know, we're not trying to deter any special events from happening. This is giving them more time to, you know, go through the process with us.
And they walk into your office like these new people. They walk into your office and you give them all their needs, and they're kind of blown away by that, and they don't know what direction. Our staff puts a lot of time into helping these events get started, each process and step it away.
Correct. And the research that I've done, we're a pretty easygoing city for having a special event. I've seen cities that charge per picnic table, charge per dumpster, charge per barricade. So I think that we do, and we know the value of having New Dublin, you know, so, or even just the smaller events at Hatton.
What do you classify as a special event?
Offer weekend.
So
There's a definition.
there is a definition. I don't,
I know, but
it's right in the top of the policy. And for us, what these are held on city property. So if it's a private party, we're not asking, you know, if they want to have a private party up at the park, that's their thing. If it's not open to the public, have a wedding or whatever. That's right. Oh, see, I knew that was gonna happen.
Definitions, yeah.
the reason I'm asking is because the fire department's got the park reserved for the first weekend in June.
Yeah, and your, like, internal events
We're a
would not
paintball
be,
tournament.
right?
Now, do we fall under this classification?
No, you are an internal group that would be having an event.
Okay, that's what I'm asking for.
Yep. Yep, same thing with like National Night Out or a park. Yep.
What park?
Memorial. Don't worry. Way before your time. It's way before your time.
It's the first weekend in June,
Yep.
Friday, Saturday night. Way after our time.
Or way after, yeah, that's what I meant. No.
Private thing, though, it's not open to the
Yeah.
public, right?
Oh,
No.
yes, it is.
You're good. So, is there any other questions about what we do with the special event permit or applications, what we do with street closures, things like that? This hasn't been discussed, like I said, since 2014, so now's the time, and with codifications going through, that will be able to update that as well.
I'll just point out with the late fees, the reason why we've put those on there is because of past practice. We've had groups come in the week before they want to do a big special event and expect that they're gonna run things. We've had a group in the past who had a huge special event, was supposed to come in and get their liquor license, and their event was on a Friday night, and we called the Friday night at 4:30, 2 hours before their event. We're calling them, saying, you did not pick up your liquor license yet. Finally, they picked it up like hours before their event. So I mean, it's happened where it's like pulling teeth to try to get people to come in. We might even have to stay open that night. I don't remember.
Yeah,
but
I think we-
But I remember we were on the phone calling the week beforehand, notifying, and then the day of is like, if you don't get picked up this liquor license, you're not having the beer sales.
And that's why with that checklist, I think that will also, I'm giving that to them. They know it's black and white, well, it's blue and white, but they can see that right on. Nicole and I just went through liquor, bartender's licenses, and, you know, we don't know who's gonna be serving the alcohol in the tent, so we need to know who's handing the beer to people, who's liable for that, you know? Things like that are mainly a liability, 100%.
Do we need a motion to adopt this change?
You
Yep.
are adopting the updates to the policy.
Policy. You got anything else on it,
No,
Ginger?
no.
Otherwise, I'd look for a motion to approve the review, adopt the changes to the special events policy.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion been made and second to adopt the policy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Does this get taken to council?
Should we go to council?
Actually, you're making a motion to take it to council.
Correct.
Annual report.
All right, just give you a chance to go through and review the summary and the annual report that Michelle put together for us. Can just go through it. I guess some of the highlights I want to just make note of is that we have all new staff. And I think that they're doing a great job. I really look forward to the summer 2022 to see what Morgan can do for us. Jim is already doing a fabulous job at the Aquatic and Fitness Center, coming from a maintenance side of it into the management side, and working with the staff there. Can't necessarily speak for the streets, but for the Parks Department, we also have brand new staff down there, and those guys have just blown me away with the work that they do. They were finding that they didn't have things to do, and so they built 4 new benches just because they had time at the end of the day. And I think Luke would definitely echo that. Luke is doing a great job motivating them. And I guess then it just goes through the facilities and parks, or streets as well. And I just want to thank Michelle for doing this. You did a great job.
I just had one question. I was just wondering, is there a reason there isn't an ice rink up this year?
Good question. So, if putting together an ice rink, you have to have a certain amount of frost in the ground if you're going to do it without a liner. If you have a liner, easy peasy, could have been up as soon as it started freezing consistently at night. Tomorrow night, we will be in a budget hearing, and a liner will be up for discussion. I have talked to the vendor that I got my quote from. He said we could have a lead time of a week, and we could have it up by the end of the month to have a test out for this year. It's requested a lot, and the main reason is the amount of water that just goes into the ground. That is just a waste to have a non-lined rink. So
Just watched a special last night on that.
yeah.
There are 37% less ice skating rink days in the northern climate.
Mm-hmm.
And in 20 years from now, they're worried about even having safe ice skating in Canada.
Oh, because of okay. Sure.
Climate change.
Climate change,
Climate change.
global shift, I guess.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but from what I understand, a liner would extend that season a couple months, and if we can get it up, we can get a good month of skating in still. If the weather, I don't know. I want it to be warmer, so I don't want to say that, but whatever.
The second question I had, I was just wondering how the Sunday public swim has been going. Has that been successful?
From what I've heard, yeah, the swimming lessons is above and beyond what we expected for enrollment. So I think that's the big addition to Sundays. I'm not entirely sure how many people are staying for that Sunday swim, but we can get, yeah. Yeah,
I heard swimming lessons were a hit.
yeah, yeah. So,
Director's report.
well, I don't know, it's in our memo here. I don't even remember what I typed. I don't have too much to report except for that I've been working a lot on that special events permit.
Gonna get you down there.
Yeah. And with the met with the Sturgeon Shuffle lady this morning. I'm reaching out to Tracy Hoyer about that May Day festival, doing a little phone tag there. Tomorrow, Luke and the new park staff and I are going to be doing a training on landscape and groundskeeping and maintenance. That'll be every Wednesday in February, so that will be good. Morgan, Jim, and I and Lori will be going to our state conference this year, which is really important to me. I started going to the state conference ever since I was in college. I've been very involved with the Wisconsin Parks and Recreation Association. I don't think that any rec staff should not go. It's so important to do that networking work, to go to the different education sessions and just keep our skills up in that way. Working on capital projects list, we'll be talking about that tomorrow night. If you have any questions, I will be there for that. Also been spending a lot of time with our new video and marketing producer, Josh Visti. If you have not met with him and sat down and talked to him, he's doing a great job. We did a great snow plowing video, and we were just kind of waiting for a large event so that we can post that right before that event. We got Luke in front of the camera even.
You have a long wait. I hope you have a long wait.
I know. And I said we might have to wait till next year. So also met with April and Chad with him about some collaborations with the Economic Development Committee. So, yeah.
Hey, Chairman's report. I just want to thank all you people. I know you've been working short-staffed and everything, so I just appreciate Michelle, all the work that they put into it. I appreciate it. I'm sure everybody here appreciates it.
Thank you.
Short staff and jumping in different areas, helping with elections, helping with tax collection.
Yeah.
A lot of cross helping all over the place.
And training all the new staff on the top of it. Yeah.
Presentation was pretty nice.
Anybody else have anything to talk about? John?
For a future agenda, or?
Yeah, for committee members report, future agenda items.
For a future agenda item, I think we should look at penalties for messing up the surface of the ice rink if we get one.
Yes, no kidding, right? Yeah.
That's always been a problem.
I agree.
They don't realize the staff man hours that goes into making an ice rink, so it should be a minimum of $1,000 and the cost.
Are we gonna put tennis courts on there? Are we gonna leave
Ooh.
that for the
Maybe we'll
Yep.
get a subcommittee and then have them come back.
Eventually, it's gonna come back to,
Yeah.
if there's a recommendation to this committee and then to council.
Can we get some numbers for the next one of what the city would actually be on the hook for tennis courts to upgrade?
Yeah, maybe pull out the 2018 stuff yet. that you
Yeah, I
have.
would say we'd get probably 2 committee members, whoever wants to be, Bob would either appoint or recommend who would be the 2 committee members from the city, along with Ginger and myself, and we'll meet with the school district and
Do we want to do that now?
might as well.
Is there anybody here want to be involved in that?
I'm not on this committee.
I'm not on the committee yet.
Well,
I don't know if you got to be on this committee, just be a, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think you would have to.
Sure, I'd be interested.
Anybody from the city that's representing.
I'd be interested if, I'd like somebody that knows
All right.
the
Maybe
sport.
John and,
Don't ask me.
okay, you guys can be on the, they'll be getting in contact with you then.
Would we be out of line to ask our student rep to be a part of that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
being
think
a
that'd
tennis
be
player.
great.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Great. Couple other things that I had. We were approached by Jim Yeager about lighting the memorial mural at Taft Park. So I asked him to come to the meeting. He will also be providing an update on the park itself, along with the shelter that they're going to be putting up over the picnic table. So that will be an item for discussion.
And I know I attended their last meeting, and I know they got some money, and I think they're going to be kicking some in for the lighting.
Correct.
That was talked about.
Okay. Yeah.
And their ultimate goal, in the end, is to,
Turn it
Turn.
over to us.
Right.
Yeah.
they talked about that from the beginning.
Yeah.
Right.
Talked about it from the start.
So that'll be a good time to have that discussion. Just a couple other things. Our lease is up with the, with Wapaka County at the senior center, so we'll just have to have a quick approval of that. That's just a signing thing. And there's one other thing. Do you remember on our board? On my whiteboard, there's
Should've
one
wrote it
other
down.
thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the tennis courts. So,
Okay, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
Just wait, if the city partners with the school district for them tennis courts, what are we gonna have to do to, the ones we got, to utilize them for basketball or that?
right. That'll have to be part of that
'Cause that's gonna be a
budget
cost.
number. Yep, exactly.
And we gotta look at bringing ours up to playable for the public to use. Yeah,
Right.
That's
So
gonna
we're
be on it.
have that cost plus the cost of the new tennis courts.
All of it will be discussed together because that will be in the partnership of it.
Yep.
That if we are giving money to them or working with them, that's also a cost to the city of redoing ours.
Or are you, hypothetically, you know, just throw out there, are you gonna remove the Hatton Park ones, pull them out, do something else with them? I mean, I think everything's on the table, you know.
For a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.